Marcus Webb stood in the center of the United Nations Galactic Relations Chamber and felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on his shoulders. The room was silent except for the low hum of translation devices. Before him floated 3 alien delegates, each representing a different member of the Galactic Council. The Zarkoth delegate looked like a massive insect with too many eyes and sharp mandibles that clicked when it spoke. The Velnari observer was an aquatic creature suspended in a floating sphere of blue liquid. The third delegate was a gray-skinned humanoid with smooth features and cold eyes that never blinked. The Zarkoth spoke first, its voice coming through the translator as sharp and metallic. Humanity had expanded into 12 star systems in the past 20 years. The Council had watched this growth with growing concern. Other species took centuries to spread across a handful of worlds. Humans did it in mere decades. They built colonies on frozen moons and desert planets that other races avoided. They thrived in conditions that should have killed them. The Council called this dangerous and reckless. Marcus listened without expression. Behind him sat Elena Rodriguez, the chief military strategist for Earth's combined fleets. She had warned him this meeting would go badly. The Council did not make requests. They made demands. And today, those demands came in the form of an ultimatum that would change everything. The gray humanoid delegate leaned forward. His name was difficult to pronounce in human languages, so everyone called him the Speaker. He laid out the Council's terms with perfect clarity. Humanity must cease all colonization immediately. All military fleets must be dismantled within 90 days. Every human world must accept Council oversight and follow Council laws. Humanity would be allowed to exist, but only under strict supervision. The Speaker called it a generous offer. He called it the gift of peace and order. Marcus took a breath and looked at each delegate in turn. Then he said the single word that would seal humanity's fate. No. The room erupted. The Zarkotha's mandibles clacked furiously. The Velnari's sphere churned with agitation. The Speaker's expression never changed, but his eyes grew even colder. Marcus continued speaking over the noise. Humanity had every right to grow and explore. They had harmed no one. They had taken no worlds that belonged to others. They had built their colonies through hard work and sacrifice. No Council would take that away. The Speaker stood slowly. He spoke in a quiet voice that somehow filled the entire chamber. Humanity had 30 days to reconsider. If they refused to comply, the Council would declare them exiled from all protected space. They would be cut off from trade routes, from galactic communications, from the network of ancient jump gates that connected civilized worlds. They would be alone in the dark reaches of space. And if humanity tried to expand further, the Council would take that as an act of war. After the delegates left, Elena joined Marcus at the viewing window. Below them, Earth turned slowly in the darkness of space. She asked him if he knew what he had just done. Marcus nodded. He had just declared humanity's independence from the most powerful alliance in the known galaxy. Elena smiled grimly. Good, she said. Then we better start preparing. The Council had given them 30 days. Elena said she would need every single one of them. News of the ultimatum spread across Earth within hours. The global communications network lit up with debates and arguments. Some people called Marcus a hero. Others called him a madman who had doomed humanity. Emergency sessions were called in every major government. Scientists and military leaders were summoned to closed-door meetings. The question everyone asked was simple. Could humanity survive on its own? Could they stand against the Council if it came to war? Elena worked 18-hour days organizing what she called contingency plans. In reality, she was preparing for war. She pulled military advisors from every human colony and put them to work on defense strategies. She ordered shipyards to increase production. She had scientists review every piece of alien technology humanity had ever traded for or studied. If the Council wanted to isolate Earth, Elena would make sure humanity was ready to fight back. On day 15, the global vote was held. Every citizen of Earth and every colonist on the 12 human worlds cast their ballot on a single question. Should humanity submit to the Council's demands or stand independent? The results came in slowly as votes were tallied across light years of distance. When the final count was announced, 87% had voted for independence. Humanity had chosen freedom over safety. They had chosen the unknown over servitude. Marcus prepared his response to the council. It was short and direct. Humanity declined the council's terms. They would continue to grow and explore as free people. They bore no ill will toward the council or its members, but they would not surrender their independence. Marcus sent the message knowing it would change everything. The council had never been refused before. No species in recorded history had chosen exile over compliance. Humanity would be the first. Marcus wondered if they would also be the last. The council's response came exactly 30 days after Marcus sent his message. It was not a negotiation. It was not a threat. It was simply action. Across human space, ancient jump gates went dark. Trade ships found themselves turned away from council stations. Communication channels were severed. In the span of a single day, humanity was cut off from the galactic community. They were alone. The exile had begun. Captain Linda Hayes watched from the bridge of her colony ship, Horizon, as the last jump gate sealed itself behind her convoy. She commanded a fleet of 12 massive vessels carrying 30,000 colonists and enough supplies to build a new world. They had been scheduled to use the jump gate network to reach a system only 3 weeks away. Now that route was blocked. Linda pulled up star charts and began calculating alternative routes. Her navigator told her it would take 8 months to reach their destination using conventional drives. 8 months in deep space with limited resources and no support. Linda made her decision quickly. They would not turn back. The colonists had voted to leave Earth and build something new. The council's blockade would not stop them. She ordered her fleet to change course. Instead of heading for their original destination, they would push into unexplored space beyond council territory. It was dangerous. The star charts showed nothing in that direction but scattered systems that no one had ever surveyed. But danger was better than surrender. Linda announced the new course to her fleet and prepared her people for the long journey ahead. Dr. Peter Chen stood in the hydroponics bay of the Horizon and studied his failing crops. The plants were dying faster than he could replace them. 8 months was a long time to stretch their food supplies. He worked alongside his team to modify growth formulas and adjust light cycles. They needed to triple their output or people would start going hungry. Peter had spent 20 years studying alien agriculture and terraforming techniques. Now he would put all that knowledge to work keeping his people alive. 3 months into the journey, the Horizon's sensors detected something unexpected. A cluster of planets orbiting a yellow star. Linda ordered a full scan. What they found changed everything. The system contained 7 worlds, 3 of them in the habitable zone. But more importantly, they detected structures on the 4th planet. Ruins. Evidence of an ancient civilization. Linda called a meeting with her senior staff. They were running low on supplies and morale was declining. This system could be exactly what they needed. She gave the order to investigate. Dr. Chen led the first landing team to the surface. What they found took his breath away. The ruins were massive and clearly very old. Buildings made of materials he could not identify. Technology that had stopped working thousands of years ago. But the most important discovery was a data archive buried deep underground. It took 3 weeks to access the archive and begin translating the information inside. What Peter found shook him to his core. This civilization had been destroyed by the Galactic Council. They had refused to submit to Council authority, just like humanity. The Council had wiped them out completely. Linda sent an encrypted message back to Earth detailing their discovery. The fragment worlds, as they started calling them, proved that the Council was not the peaceful alliance it claimed to be. They had committed genocide before and would likely do it again. But the ruins also contained something valuable. Technical data about advanced technology that the Council had suppressed. Weapons. Shields. Faster-than-light drives that were more efficient than anything humanity currently used. The fragment civilization had been more advanced than the Council, and that was why they had been destroyed. Meanwhile, Admiral Kyle Morrison commanded Earth's defense fleet from his flagship. He received reports daily of Council ships probing human space. They were testing defenses and gathering intelligence. Kyle knew an attack was coming eventually. The Council would not tolerate humanity's defiance forever. He drilled his crews constantly and ran war game simulations. His fleet was outnumbered 10-1 by Council forces, but Kyle had advantages. Human ships were newer and more maneuverable. Human crews trained harder and adapted faster. If war came, Kyle intended to make the Council pay dearly for every system they tried to take. Governor Janet Price ran the frontier colony of New Terra, the most distant human settlement. Her world was harsh and barely habitable. The atmosphere was thin and the soil was toxic. But her people were tough and resourceful. They had built underground cities and developed new farming techniques. When the Council blockade cut them off from Earth, Janet simply shrugged and told her people to keep working. New Terra had been self-sufficient for years. They did not need the Council or Earth to survive. In fact, isolation might make them stronger. Back on the horizon, Linda made a decision that would define the future of human colonization. Instead of continuing to their original destination, they would stay in the fragment system. They would build their colony among the ruins and study everything the ancient civilization had left behind. It was risky, but the potential rewards were enormous. Linda sent word to Earth requesting more ships and scientists. The fragment worlds would become humanity's first step into true independence. They would learn from the mistakes of those who came before and build something the Council could never destroy. Dr. Angela Moore had spent her entire career studying theoretical physics within the limits set by the Galactic Council. The Council controlled which technologies species were allowed to develop. They shared some knowledge freely but kept the most advanced discoveries locked away. Angela had always followed the rules. But now, with humanity exiled and independent, those rules no longer applied. She stood in her laboratory on Earth and looked at equations that the Council had forbidden anyone to explore. For the first time in her life, she was truly free to discover. The data from the fragment worlds gave Angela the breakthrough she needed. The ancient civilization had developed a form of faster-than-light travel that worked differently from Council jump gates. Instead of using fixed portals, their ships created temporary folds in space itself. Angela studied their designs for months, working with a team of the brightest minds humanity had to offer. They modified the fragment technology to work with human engineering. The first test was conducted in secret at a research station orbiting Jupiter. When they activated the prototype drive, the test ship vanished and reappeared 30 light-years away in less than 6 seconds. The Council's best ships needed 3 hours to cover the same distance. Vincent Palmer walked through the orbital shipyard above Mars and felt pride surge through his chest. He was an industrial engineer who had spent decades building ships according to Council-approved designs. Those designs were safe and reliable but also slow to construct and expensive to maintain. Vincent had always seen ways to improve them, but the Council did not allow modifications. Now he could build ships the way they should have been built all along. He designed new warships with modular construction. Instead of taking 2 years to build a single vessel, his shipyards could now produce a fleet-ready destroyer in 3 weeks. The new human warships were smaller and faster than Council vessels. They used Angela's fold space drives to jump in and out of combat at will. Their weapons were more powerful because Vincent had removed the Council-mandated safety limiters that reduced efficiency. Their armor was lighter but stronger thanks to new alloys developed on the harsh frontier worlds. Every aspect of the design was optimized for one purpose: to give humanity a fighting chance against superior numbers. Dr. Lisa Grant worked in artificial intelligence research. The Council strictly limited AI development because they feared intelligent machines might become uncontrollable. Lisa had always thought those fears were overblown. She developed adaptive AI systems that could learn and evolve. Her creations managed everything from crop production to weapons targeting. They optimized fuel consumption in ships and predicted enemy tactics in battle. The AI did not replace human decision-making, but it enhanced it dramatically. A single human commander with AI support could coordinate fleet movements that would normally require dozens of officers. The results of these innovations spread across human space within a year. Colonies that had struggled to survive now thrived. Food production doubled and then tripled as AI-optimized farming techniques were implemented. New settlements were established on worlds the Council had declared too dangerous for habitation. Humans built domed cities on frozen moons and floating platforms in the clouds of gas giants. They mined asteroids and constructed massive space stations. What the Council saw as hostile and unlivable, humanity saw as opportunities. Commander Blake Johnson led special operations teams that ventured into Council space on secret missions. They made contact with species the Council had marginalized and suppressed. There were dozens of civilizations that lived on the fringes of Council territory, neither fully accepted nor completely exiled. Blake offered them trade agreements and technology sharing. Many were suspicious at first. Humanity was new and unknown. But Blake showed them proof of what humans had accomplished in just 2 years of independence. He showed them fragment technology and AI systems. He showed them worlds that humans had tamed through determination and innovation. Slowly, carefully, Blake built a network of allies. Species that had their own grievances with the Council began to see humanity as a symbol of resistance. Some sent representatives to human colonies. Others shared intelligence about Council military movements. A few brave souls even offered to fight alongside humans if war came. The Council noticed these connections and grew increasingly alarmed. Humanity was not just surviving in exile. They were thriving. And worse, they were spreading ideas of independence and self-determination. The fragment worlds became the center of human research and development. Dr. Peter Chen oversaw the excavation of more ruins and the translation of more data archives. Each discovery revealed new secrets about technology and history. The fragment civilization had lasted for 10,000 years before the Council destroyed them. They had been peaceful and prosperous. Their only crime was refusing to submit to Council authority. Peter made sure this history was shared across all human colonies. People needed to understand what they were fighting for and what they were fighting against. 3 years after the exile began, humanity had transformed completely. They had 42 colonies spread across 30 star systems. Their fleet had grown from 200 ships to over 1,000. Their technology had advanced beyond anything the Council had shared with other species. And most importantly, their spirit remained unbroken. The people who had voted for independence had not regretted their choice. They had built something new and free. Now they just had to defend it. Because everyone knew the Council would not tolerate this success forever. War was coming. The only question was when. The attack came without warning on a cold morning in the 5th year of exile. General Patricia Stone was reviewing fleet deployments when alarms screamed across her command center. Council warships had dropped out of fold space at the edge of 3 different human systems simultaneously. Patricia watched the tactical displays light up with hostile contacts. 200 enemy vessels in the first wave. Then 400 more. The Council had committed over a third of their entire military to crush humanity in one overwhelming strike. Patricia gave orders with calm precision even as her heart raced. She had spent 5 years preparing for this exact moment. Every human colony had defensive platforms in orbit. Every system had hidden weapons caches and emergency protocols. Most importantly, every commander knew the plan. Humanity could not win a direct battle against such numbers. But they did not need to. They needed to survive long enough to bleed the Council dry. Patricia activated the defense network and sent the signal that would change everything. It was time to fight. Captain Ryan Mitchell commanded the destroyer Defiant, one of the new class warships built with fragment technology. His ship was outnumbered 5 to 1 in the first engagement, but Ryan had advantages the Council did not expect. The Defiant could full jump every 30 seconds while Council ships needed 5 minutes to charge their drives. Ryan used this to devastating effect. He would appear behind enemy formations, fire a full salvo of missiles, then vanish before return fire could hit him. His crew worked with mechanical efficiency. Jump, fire, jump again. The Council ships were powerful but slow. They could not catch what they could not pin down. The Battle of New Terra lasted 18 hours. Governor Janet Price coordinated ground defenses while Patricia directed the orbital fight. The council brought overwhelming force expecting a quick victory. Instead, they found themselves locked in brutal close-quarters combat. Human ships darted through the battle space like wolves attacking a herd. They targeted engines and weapons, crippling council vessels without completely destroying them. Disabled ships became obstacles that slowed the council advance. By the time the council fleet withdrew, they had lost 40 ships. Humanity lost 12. The odds were not good, but they were better than expected, but humanity suffered losses too. 2 colonies were devastated by orbital bombardment. Millions died in the opening weeks of the war. Supply lines were disrupted. Civilian ships were destroyed. Patricia received casualty reports and forced herself to read every single one. These were not just numbers. They were people who had trusted humanity's leaders to keep them safe. Patricia vowed that their deaths would not be in waste. Every loss made her more determined to find a way to win. Ambassador Helen Brooks worked behind the scenes to turn the council's attack into a political disaster. She reached out to the fringe species that Commander Blake had contacted years earlier. She shared footage of council ships bombarding civilian colonies. She showed them proof that the council was willing to commit genocide to maintain control. The message was clear. If the council would do this to humans, they would do it to anyone who defied them. Helen's efforts paid off slowly. 3 species declared their support for humanity. They sent medical supplies and intelligence. 2 more offered sanctuary to human refugees. It was not much, but it was a start. The council's second wave came 3 months later. They had learned from their mistakes and brought even more ships. But humanity had learned too. General Stone implemented new tactics. Instead of defending every colony equally, she concentrated forces at strategic choke points. She let the council take some systems unopposed, then ambushed their supply convoys. Ryan Mitchell led hit-and-run raids deep into council territory, destroying fuel depots and repair stations. The council had more ships, but those ships needed constant resupply. Patricia made sure those supplies never arrived safely. The Battle of Crimson Nebula became the turning point. The council trapped a human fleet in a dense nebula and moved in for what they thought would be an easy victory. But the nebula interfered with council sensors while human ships, equipped with superior AI targeting systems, could see perfectly. Patricia ordered her entire reserve fleet to jump into the battle. 300 human warships materialized in the heart of the council formation. The fight was vicious and close range. Ships collided. Explosions lit up the nebula like lightning. When it was over, the council had lost 100 vessels. They withdrew from human space completely. News of the victory spread across the galaxy. The Galactic Council, which had never lost a major battle in recorded history, had been defeated by humans. Species that had lived under council rule for thousands of years began to question whether the council was truly invincible. Protests erupted on council worlds. Member species demanded to know why they were fighting a war against people who just wanted to be free. The High Arbiter, the supreme leader of the council, refused to answer questions. He ordered the military to prepare for a third offensive. This time, he promised, humanity would be exterminated completely, but the council's member species were growing tired of the war. They had sent their children to die fighting humans. They had paid higher taxes to fund the military campaigns. And for what? To force one species to submit? Some council members began secretly reaching out to Ambassador Brooks. They wanted to know if peace was possible. Helen told them the truth. Humanity would never surrender, but they would negotiate as equals. The council just had to accept that their age of absolute control was over. A new era was beginning, and they could either adapt or be left behind. President Daniel Carter stood before the United Human Assembly and addressed representatives from every colony and settlement. 7 years had passed since Marcus Webb first refused the council's demands. 7 years of struggle and sacrifice. 7 years of war. But humanity had survived, and now they stood on the edge of something remarkable. Daniel outlined his plan for the final phase of the conflict. Humanity would not wait for the Council to attack again. They would take the fight to Council space itself. Fleet Admiral Lauren West prepared the largest human armada ever assembled. Over 1,500 warships gathered at staging points across human territory. They were supported by thousands of support vessels, mobile shipyards, and automated defense drones. Lauren had spent 2 years planning this operation down to the smallest detail. The goal was not to conquer Council worlds but to liberate them. Species that wanted independence would be offered protection and support. Those that wanted to remain with the Council would be left alone. Humanity was not interested in building an empire. They wanted to end the Council's monopoly on power. The offensive began with precision strikes on Council military installations. Human ships folded into heavily defended systems, destroyed weapons platforms and shipyards, then vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Admiral West commanded from her flagship Vanguard, a massive carrier that served as a mobile command center. She coordinated attacks across 20 systems simultaneously. The Council's military, already weakened from years of fighting, struggled to respond. They had been built to enforce peace through overwhelming force. They had never faced an enemy that could strike anywhere at any time. Captain Gregory Barnes commanded the Vanguard's fighter wing and led dangerous missions deep into Council territory. His squadron protected human landing teams as they made contact with oppressed species. The response was overwhelming. 17 different civilizations declared their independence within the first month of the offensive. Some had been part of the Council for thousands of years but had never been treated as equals. They had been junior members, required to follow orders but never allowed to vote on policy. When humanity offered them true freedom, they seized it eagerly. The High Arbiter watched his empire crumble and refused to accept defeat. He ordered the activation of a weapon that the Council had kept hidden for millennia. It was a device built by an ancient race, designed to destroy entire star systems. The High Arbiter planned to use it on Earth itself. If he could not control humanity, he would eliminate them completely. He gave the order to fire, convinced that this would finally end the rebellion and restore Council authority, but the High Arbiter had underestimated human intelligence networks. Commander Blake Johnson had infiltrated the Council's inner circle years earlier. His agents discovered the weapon and its location. Blake sent an urgent message to Captain Barnes. There was a facility hidden in an asteroid field where the weapon was being prepared. Barnes took his squadron and raced against time. They had less than 6 hours before the weapon would be ready to fire. The facility was protected by automated defenses and a small fleet of Council ships. Barnes did not hesitate. He led his fighters straight into the heaviest fire. The battle was brutal. Barnes lost half his squadron in the first attack run. But they succeeded in disabling the facility's shields. Barnes personally flew his damaged fighter into the weapons control center and set off a series of explosions that destroyed the entire complex. He barely escaped before the facility detonated. The weapon that could have destroyed Earth was gone. The High Arbiter's last desperate gambit had failed. When news spread of what the High Arbiter had tried to do, even loyal Council members were horrified. Destroying an entire inhabited system was beyond any acceptable action. Council member species called for an emergency session. For the first time in history, they voted to remove their own leader. The High Arbiter was stripped of power and placed under arrest. A provisional government was formed with representatives from species that had grown tired of endless war. They reached out to President Carter and requested negotiations. Ambassador Helen Brooks led the human delegation to the first peace talks. The meeting took place on a neutral station in unclaimed space. Helen laid out humanity's terms simply and clearly. The Galactic Council as it existed had to end. In its place, a new galactic assembly would be formed. Every species would have an equal vote regardless of size or power. No species would be forced to join. Those who wanted to remain independent could do so freely. Technology and knowledge would be shared openly instead of being controlled by a central authority. Member species would cooperate as partners, not as rulers and subjects. Most importantly, the use of force to maintain order would be forbidden. Disputes would be resolved through dialogue and compromise. Helen made it clear that these terms were not negotiable. Humanity had fought too hard for freedom to accept anything less. The Provisional Council government accepted the terms after 3 days of debate. The war was over. Humanity had won not through conquest but through perseverance and principles. The formal signing ceremony was held on Earth, with representatives from 42 species in attendance. President Carter gave a speech that was broadcast across the galaxy. He spoke about the cost of freedom and the price of tyranny. He honored those who had died fighting for independence. And he promised that humanity would never again bow to any authority that demanded compliance instead of offering cooperation. The era of the Galactic Council had ended. The age of the Galactic Assembly had begun. Dr. Peter Chen made one final discovery in the fragment ruins. Evidence suggested that humans and the fragment civilization shared common ancestry. Humanity might be the descendants of the very people the Council had destroyed thousands of years ago. It explained why humans refused to submit. It was in their blood to fight for freedom. The circle had closed. The fragment civilization was gone, but their legacy lived on through humanity. President Carter stood before the first session of the Galactic Assembly and looked out at the gathered representatives. They were building something new together. Something based on freedom and mutual respect. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to shape. Humanity had conquered the stars not through force but through the simple refusal to surrender their independence. And that, Carter knew, would be their greatest victory of all.